develop their professional careers, and also secure jobs at top companies like JP Morgan, BDO.
Hello, John. Kindly unmute yourself, okay?
Hello, can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
John. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. I was introducing the facilitator. So let me take it back again. Okay, so our facilitator is a career strategy, job search expert, and founder of Elevate with NLL. She's very ambitious and has helped a lot of people develop their professional careers and to secure jobs at top companies in Ghana and in the world. I mean, JP Morgan, BW, BDO, PwC, KPMG, and Bank of Ghana. Um, she is a finance and technology enthusiast with a strong background in business. She holds bachelor's degree in actuarial science and a master's in development finance. She's also a level 2 candidate for the Chartered Finance Analyst (CFA) examination. She currently works as a financial consultant in one of the 4 auditing or accounting firms in Ghana. Um, so, ladies and gentlemen, our facilitator for the day is no other person than Na Lamti. So now, maybe I didn't do the introduction well. If I've left something out, you can add it as you take over.
Okay, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Nalam Nilamte, and I feel really honored to be your facilitator for today. Thank you so much, First Man and Grasa QCC, for this opportunity. So I hope we get a lot out of this webinar, because I believe so much that there's so much we can learn from being able to market ourselves as professionals. And so please spare me about 45 minutes of your time as much as possible. Get rid of any form of distraction and then pay attention to me. And hopefully this will be very interactive. So I'll be asking a few questions, and you can feel free to answer them in the chat box. So in the chat box. I hope you can hear me. I can see in the chat box that you can hear me. I can see in the chat box that.
And now I can hear you from here. So I'm sure there's some issue with their mic. So I'll look at that.
So can I get feedback in the chat box if you can hear me? Okay. So I think the majority can hear me.
Yeah. Hello, Na.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, Na. Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, Na.
Yes.
Yeah, Walker. I want to ask if you're streaming on Instagram or Facebook as you did the last time.
I'm not. Would you want me to? So that
yes,
they can join, because I realized that
yes.
People are having challenges with joining in.
Yes, now
yeah,
John,
we
are
have
working
reached
on
our
it.
maximum distance.
So we are working on it. So we are going to Facebook. So I will share the link with you shortly.
Okay, so I think we should do that. But in the meantime, we can just do a bit of networking in the chat box. So you could just give me your name, where you are, listening to this webinar from, maybe where you work or what you do. Is just a short time of networking while we sort out the Facebook aspect. I hope that's fine. So we can do that. Okay. So we have Noel, GSC. Hi, Noel. Hello, Isaac. So you can share with me what you do. We are networking, so you never know. You could meet your next business partner there. Okay. And you could also share if you are searching for a job, you could let us know, and you could also let us know which industry you are looking at. If you have a particular company in mind, feel free to let us know. So we have Rhoda from KNUST, Yendu, UCC. Okay, Yendu teaches at Infant STEM. Okay. So Noel, yes, so Noel is currently working as an administrator at a school. Yes, Irene is currently an MBA student. Okay, it's nice to get to know you guys. All right, so we have Abdul, Martin Opoku. Okay, and if you've ever sent a CV or a resume out to try to get a job and they ghosted on you, kindly let me know in the chat box if you are in this, group. Has that ever happened to you? Okay, there's Hayford. Okay, so it looks like we have a lot of UCC students here. Interesting. Okay. And in the meantime, I also love to know what expectations you have for this webinar, because, well, you know that you're going to hear something about resume writing, but then what exactly are you expecting to take from this webinar? Hopefully I get to meet those expectations. Okay, it's nice to meet you guys. Lucinda, Gifty, Eunice, Bliss. Okay, we have Steve from
sorry.
UCC.
Now let me interrupt. So now we are live on Facebook. So those of us who have friends and colleagues who are trying to join but couldn't join, we are live on Facebook. So I'm sharing the link on the chat. So you can also share the link with them.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
Because I have shared the link, so you can share it with your colleagues and friends. Thank you.
Okay, so we could use the next 2 minutes to just share with friends, let them know that they can join via Facebook so that we can start with the webinar.
Hello, Na.
Yes, hi.
I think we can start now.
So, are we ready?
Yeah, we are ready. We can start now.
Great. All right. So I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. So let me know if you can see.
Yes, we can see your screen now.
Awesome. All right. So you are welcome once again to this webinar. And we are going to be talking about how to write an outstanding resume or CV so you can secure a job fastest. So I'm sure you've ever tried to apply for a job and either you hear crickets or you probably get a message or an email from them and it's a rejection email and you're just wondering what's going on, if everything is okay, because you feel like you're probably qualified for the job, but then you don't understand why you're not getting the job. So that's what we're going to be talking about, how to actually put together a resume or a CV that will make you stand out and that will make you the clear choice. So we are going to start now. I've already introduced myself a bit. My name is Malam Lee, and I am a career strategist. This is what I love doing, and I've helped several professionals like you to land their dream jobs. And hopefully this webinar is going to give you some perspective into how to go about putting your career documents together, specifically your CV or your resume. And I keep saying CV or resume. As time goes on, I'm going to talk about the difference. So we are moving on. I'm going to start with a question. On the average, how long do you think it takes a recruiter to review your resume? You can just take a wild guess in the chat box. So I said this is going to be very interactive. So as much as possible, I want to be sure that, you guys are here with me. Okay, someone is saying 5 minutes, 3 minutes. Okay, 30 minutes. Okay, half an hour, wow. 5 minutes, 30 seconds, 15. Okay, so this is the answer. Less than 20 seconds. So just imagine if a recruiter has to go through thousands of resumes or hundreds of resumes. Obviously, they can't use 30 minutes to look at just one person's resume. Typically, they just look at the resume and then immediately they start looking for red flags. So we'll talk about some of those red flags you need to avoid. So after they see the red flags, then they just toss the resume somewhere. And you wouldn't want your resume to be tossed somewhere. So you need to be able to pass that 20-second test, because then once they see your resume should be able to sell, your skills, your qualifications, and it should be able to let the recruiter know immediately that, hey, I'm the best person for this job, so pick me. So that's what your resume is supposed to do. If it looks boring, if it looks like any other resume, so they have about, let's say typically a recruiter has, say, 600 resumes to review, and yours doesn't stand out in any way, there's no way you'll be chosen for that job, even if you are so qualified for the job. I'm sure other people are equally qualified. So what makes you different? How are you able to communicate the fact that you are the perfect person for the job? And that's what your resume should be able to do for you. So why do you need a resume? I think I've spoken a bit about that already. But the first reason is the fact that it's a marketing tool. Sometimes you feel like your resume is just part of your documents, something you just share when you hear there's a job vacancy somewhere. So you just like, oh, let me just share my CV with this person. Or an uncle comes around and hears that you do not have a job and goes like, oh, send me your CV. Let me, see if I can do something about it. And then you just put something together and share. But you need to start seeing your resume as a marketing tool. You need to start seeing your resume as a document that is going to sell your expertise. So if your resume is looking very basic and it's not screaming, I'm the best person for the job, then I don't know what you're doing. So the next thing is that your resume is just going to get you, or it's just going to give you one foot in the door. So you're just going to get an interview with your resume. I mean, there have been situations where people just see someone's resume and immediately want to give the person a job. But typically it's just so that the recruiter can see the face behind, what you have on paper. So you may not be there physically to make the recruiter or the employer know that, look, I'm the best person for the job. But then your resume should be able to do it so that the employer goes like, this person is probably good. Let me invite the person in for an interview. But if your resume is terrible, there's no way you're going to be called for an interview, and there's no way you get that job. So when you begin to see your resume as such, it causes you to treat it differently, and it causes you to make sure that it meets the requirements of the employer. Another thing you need to be mindful of is the fact that your resume is not necessarily for you. So when I say that, I mean you are not putting together a resume just because you feel like doing it. You are definitely going to give it to somebody. Somebody else is going to be at the receiving end. And so you need to have that person in mind. You need to ask yourself, okay, so how is this information I'm putting on my resume relevant to this employer who is going to see it? So if I see something like, I like playing football or I like watching TV on someone's resume, if I am an employer, I'll ask myself, okay, you like watching football, so what should I do? Okay, you like swimming, so what should I do? And hopefully you guys will realize that I am driving at something. I'm driving at the fact that you do not have to put unnecessary things on your resume. So you ask yourself, before you put anything on your resume, you ask yourself, is it going to be relevant to the employer? How is it going to help the employer to make a decision? And that decision should obviously be in your favor. So if you have something, let's say you're a first class student, definitely it's something that you'd want to put on your resume. But if you realize that there's something that will not really be interesting for the employer. There's no need to put it on your resume. So moving on, I'm going to just briefly talk about the difference between a CV and a resume. I hope you're here with me. I just want to see people say yes in the chat box if you're here with me and if you understand what I've said so far. Awesome. Okay, I see Obed, Emmanuel, Gabriella, Richard, Samuel. Great. So it's nice to know you guys are here with me. So now I'm going to talk about the difference between the CV and the resume. I realized someone mentioned that in the chat box as one of the person's expectations. So I'm going to talk about the difference. So first of all, I would say that a CV is more general. A CV is what I would typically call a master resume. So it contains everything you've done in your career. So right from projects you've done, places you've worked at, whatever you've ever done in your career, you can have that on your CV. And it's usually for academic purposes. Okay, so as compared to the resume, the CV is more general and it's more of a research-oriented document. So those of you doing your MPhil, or the lecturers and all that, typically you'd see that they are the ones who would submit a CV. So a CV can contain all your publications. A CV can contain all that. So moving on, I hope you can see. Okay, so a resume, on the other hand, is more specific. And I always say that before you apply for a job, you need to be able to read the job description, know exactly what the employer is looking for, and then you put a document together to address the employer's needs. So let me explain this. You would, let's say you want to apply for an accounting job, okay, so an accounting role, and you have some experience in makeup or cooking. That is not going to be relevant in an accounting role. So there's no need for that to be in your resume when you are, applying for that job, because it's not necessary. The resume is supposed to be as direct and as specific as much as possible, because you just want the employer to see that, okay, this is the best person for the job. You don't want to confuse the person. You're saying you're an accountant. Now you're saying you are a great chef. Now you're saying you're a designer. You're confusing, the employer. You need to make sure that you tailor your documents towards whatever job that you are applying for. So that being said, we are going to, so I've said this already, that your resume is a marketing document and you need to treat it as such. All right, so now we are going to talk about the structure of a resume. So typically, we know that you'd have, I think there's a problem with Is it Edmond? Anyway, moving on. If you have any questions, we'll have a time for questions so that I could take your questions. So we have the header, and that should be the first thing that the employer would see. So your name, your email address, your phone number, your address, and your address is not necessary to have, your exact house number. No, that is not necessary at all. You can just have a vague address that works. And you could add your LinkedIn URL. But before you add your LinkedIn URL, make sure your LinkedIn is, looking great. You wouldn't want to give the employer any weird pointers. So you put your LinkedIn URL there, and then they go and click on it, and your LinkedIn profile is looking very sad. You don't have to do that. You need to make sure that once you're putting your LinkedIn URL there, it has to be, great, so that once they click on it, they know that, okay, this person is a serious person. Also, I'm sure you already know that with the email, as much as possible, you stick to a very professional email address. No weird looking email addresses, no nicknames whatsoever. Make sure you have a professional email address, and make sure your name is boldly written up there. Now, typically, in addition to the header, I would advise professionals to maybe add a few keywords. So let's say if you are an accountant or if you are a marketer, you can just have about 3 keywords. So first you could have, say you're a marketer or a digital marketer. You could also add the fact that you are an SEO expert, something to just draw the employer's attention to you and to who you are and what exactly your resume is going to talk about. And like I said, it's a marketing tool. So as much as possible, you don't have to, think that your resume should look like every other person's resume. So because of that, it's going to follow the same format. The most important thing is the fact that you are making it clear to the employer that I'm the best person for the job. This is what I can do. This is what I have ever done. This is what I have ever accomplished. That's pretty much the summary of what a resume should do. It should be able to tell the employer that I am the best person for the job because, first of all, I'm qualified for it. Secondly, this is what I have ever done, and so I'm able to do it again. Now, this is an example of just a very basic header. So the person's name, then the email. So I've already addressed, the things about the name and then the email. And make sure you put the right phone number there. Because if you really want the job, make sure you cross-check all that. All right, so moving on, you need to give the employer a bit of, should I say, a teaser into who you are as a professional, and I call that the professional summary. Now, people usually have a career objective. I don't advise that you have a career objective over there because really the employer doesn't care about that. So you should rather make it a professional summary. And the career, let me just give an example of a career objective. Someone will say, let's say, a very dedicated young professional looking for a marketing company to work with. The employer already knows that you want to work with him or her. So why are you now telling us in your resume that you want to work with us? is not necessary. You should rather use that space. You should rather use that space to talk about who you are as a professional. That's the time for you to be specific. That's the time for you to give a brief summary into your relevant skills, your knowledge, and your accomplishments. Okay, so that's the time for you to give some information about your accomplishments as well as your knowledge. And so you should make sure that it's very specific. You should also make sure that it is addressing the employer's needs. So let me give an example. So you know that, let's say what First Man does. Let's say First Man Consulting is looking for a data analyst, and they call out for resumes. Now you're not coming to give them a resume that says that's looking for a company that will teach me how to be a great analyst. They won't pick you. So what you should do is, in your professional summary, you need to state what you can do. So maybe you are great with Power BI, or you are great with SPSS, R, Python. So that's where you are, hyping yourself for the employer to see that this person is definitely going to be worth it. So even if they don't go through the entire resume, just your professional summary alone, which should be about 4 to 5 lines, should make the employer feel like, okay, this person is a great professional, and I would definitely want to work with this person. So that's something you need to consider. So that's the point where you list your most marketable skills. That's the point where you can feel free and mention your school. That's the point where you can also mention one of your biggest accomplishments in your industry. So in this case, where First Man is looking for a data analyst, you can also mention the fact that you've been able to train about 100 people, in Power BI or R or SPSS, something that will get them intrigued, something that will make them consider, okay, this person knows what he or she is about, and I should definitely go ahead and hire this person. So we are moving on. So I've already mentioned the fact that you need to talk about your experience. That's still in the professional summary. You need to talk about your experience, your skills, your qualifications, and your accomplishments. And you need to make sure that it's a summary, just something to get them, interested. Then now you come to your skills and your competencies. So after your professional summary, now the aim of this is so that you can get the employer's attention early enough. Typically, they will now go and turn over your resume and scout for certain things. So you are trying to make things very, very easy for them by putting the very important things first. So now they want to know, okay, this person has given me a great professional summary. Now let me see what skills the person has, because that's what they are looking for. After that, they'll now try to find out, okay, what experience does the person have? So now to their skills, you can give some technical skills that you have. You can also give some soft skills that will be relevant for the job. It depends on the job. If it's a customer service job, you know that you need to have some soft skills
Hello. Yeah, it seems we have lost now. So let's give her some few minutes for her to join again. So we are going to plead with you just some few minutes for her to
We
join
can
again.
also do some discussion with my.
Come again. Okay, now it's here. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, now we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Hello, you can hear you.
Are relevant to the job. You need to mention that if you have, any software proficiency, language proficiency, major accomplishments, you should make that known as early as possible because you are selling yourself to the employer. Once again, you are mentioning or you are screaming to the employer that you are the best candidates for the job. So you need to make sure that this section of your resume is doing that for you. Okay, so I'm trying as much as possible for us to stay within the time given. So yeah. After that, I'll take questions if you have any questions. So after your skills and your key competencies, then you talk about your professional experience and work history. So this is where you talk about any full-time or part-time jobs you've ever done. If you ever worked for yourself, you can feel free and state that. If you've done any volunteer work, any field work whatsoever, feel free to mention that. And when you are sharing this information, make sure that it is also going to give the recruiter more reason to choose you. So even as you are stating where you've ever worked, you need to state some of the roles you played. If you have any accomplishments over there, this is the time to mention it. If you've been able to reduce costs or you've increased sales in any way, or you've done something that has helped your previous company in any way, this is the time to state it. So you don't just, put mere responsibilities there and say responsible for minutes taken or responsible for sharing letters or responsible for putting together memos. that sounds really boring, and it sounds like, okay, this person is a robot. They just tell you do this and then you just do it and you move. But if you are able to give some detail into what you did and state how it was, it was beneficial to the company. So maybe you were able to use Power BI to build a model, or you were able to use SPSS to build, a model, or use Excel VBA to do something, and this was the outcome. That's exactly what you should be doing. So you state what exactly you did and you state the outcome. But if you just give, random duties, it doesn't in any way make you stand out. And we are still talking about writing a resume that will actually make you stand out. So I'm just giving a few tips on that. So you can use bullet points so that it's easier for the employer to read. You can also, give an action verb. So let's say you completed this task by doing this and this and that. Then you can also say you chaired this meeting where you did this and that and that and that. As much as possible, let them see you as an achiever. Let them see you as someone who has accomplished this, and not just using words like responsible for minute taking, or responsible for this, or responsible for that. And I've also stated the fact that you need to tailor your experiences to the position that you're applying for. So if you read the job description very well and you are able to know some of the things that you'd be required to do in that job, you would want to show the employer that I've seen in your job description that you want someone who would do this and this and that. This is what I was doing in my previous, company. And so I'm the best person for the job, because I didn't just do it, but I did it really well. So you need to be, detail oriented. Now let's compare this. So quickly, we can just read this and then tell me which one you would choose if you were an employer. So someone comes to tell you that I was responsible for handling customer problems. And then someone else comes to tell you that, resolved. So I resolved approximately 30 customer problems on a daily basis, resulting in a high degree of customer satisfaction. Who would you choose? Yes. So everybody is saying the second person. Everybody is saying the second person. I would definitely choose the second person. And I'm sure they're saying pretty much the same thing. But one person is just being very basic about it, and the other person is giving a lot more detail. The other person is showing that, okay, if you hire me, I'm not just going to be a basic person, I'm going to give you value. So yes, everybody is choosing the second person. So this is how you'd want your resume to look, so that you would stand out, so that you don't look like every other professional or every other candidate applying for the job. All right, so we move on to the education and certifications. So you realize that I brought your work experience even before your education, because once you're able to talk about your professional summary and then your skills, people will barely even look at the education section. So you can just have that after your work experience. And for that, you typically say the name of your school, the degree you did, any special accomplishments. So I was working on a resume with a client, and she was the best graduating female student for her batch. in University of Ghana. And I realized that she didn't even have that on her resume. And I was like, how on earth do you even omit that from your resume? That's a huge thing. That is very impressive. So that's the problem. Sometimes you forget that your resume is supposed to hype you. Your resume is supposed to make anybody who sees, that document be like, wow, I want to hire this person. I want to work with this person. So it's not just going to state that I've done this, I've done that, I went to this school, I worked here, but it's supposed to say so many things at the same time. It's supposed to say I'm a detail-oriented person just by how you've arranged things. It's supposed to say someone who would give up my best at any point in time by how you've even been able to communicate your value. So someone can probably not even have the qualifications that you have, but the person is able to sell him or herself better than you, and so would definitely get the job. So it's not just about your qualifications, it's not just about what you can do, but being able to actually communicate what you can do. So moving on, now you move on to the extra parts of the resume where you have your volunteering, experience, leadership experience, any awards. Typically, I'll advise that you put the awards up where I stated that have accomplishments stated there. So in the skills and key competencies section, you can have awards there, your professional affiliations and all that. But ultimately, how you structure your resume depends on you. And you should be able to think for the employer. You just did, even with the example that I gave, where you had to choose one of the people, you chose the second person, and that should tell you that you have an idea of what a typical employer wants. And so even as you are crafting your resume or putting your resume together, you should have that in mind, and you should know that it's the employer who is going to look at my resume. So this information that I'm putting here, is it relevant? I'm putting my hometown in the resume. Is it relevant? I'm putting my, mother's name. Is it relevant? No, the employer doesn't care about your mother's name. The employer doesn't care about your religion. The employer doesn't care about your hobbies, unless your hobby is going to be relevant to the job. The employer doesn't want to know your hobby. So don't put your hobby there. The employer doesn't care about your marital status. So there's no need for you to put that in your resume. For your age, typically it's not important unless you're applying for a job that's, let's say it's an entry-level job, and then they have a cutoff point. So they don't take candidates above, let's say 27. So for that, you might want to put your date of birth there or your age. But if they are silent on that, there's no need to give that information, because how is that even going to communicate anything to the employer about who you are as a professional? So there's no need to put your age there. All right. So I think we have a general understanding of how the structure of a resume should look. And I'm just going to quickly run through some do's and don'ts. I think I've said most of them already, but I'm just going to say a few things briefly. That if you have some unpaid experience, you can feel free to add that. So maybe you did an internship, but they didn't pay you. It's still an experience, and so you should feel free to add that. You were volunteering somewhere. Once it's relevant to the job you're applying for, you should feel free and do that. And you can have several resumes. So depending on the job that you're applying for, you might have, a resume for, let's say, this particular role. You may have a resume for another role and all that, but you need to have a master resume that contains all of your experience, all of the things that you've ever done. And one way to spice up your resume and make it more, should I say, interesting, is by adding numbers, percentages, amounts, so as to give the employer more detail into what you did. So let's say you want to say you increased revenue in your previous company. But if you're able to say that you increased revenue by, say, 20% in your previous company, that is impressive. And so you give the employer some perspective into what you did. And please, if you're putting, that information there, make sure you can back it when you're called for an interview. So they ask you that, okay, you said you increased revenue by 20%. What was revenue then? And what is it now? And you cannot say it. Please, you should be able to defend everything on your resume. So the fact that I'm saying that hype yourself in your resume does not in any way mean that you should lie. Okay, so we are moving on. Also, as much as possible, avoid making your resume look like a letter. So you're saying I, me, all that. Just keep it very void of the pronouns and all of that. And there's no need for you to have your references in your resume. There's no need for you to have that at all. You can have a separate document for your resume. So that's what I usually do for my clients. I advise them to have a different document for just their references, then a different document for their cover letter, and a different document for their resume. Also, make sure that your resume and the font is, easy to read. And the fact that I'm saying you should make your resume nice does not mean that you should go and make it too loud and use weird what was it called, fonts and colors all over the place. You need to make it look professional. You need to make it look great and all that, but it shouldn't look basic. All right, so remember that your resume should not look like any other resume where it's going to have the same old words we see all the time. So passionate, diligent, the same old things we see all the time. Rather, I would advise that you use, words that are more industry specific, and then make sure you are using the necessary keywords that were in the job description, because the job description gives you an idea of exactly what the employer is looking for. So you don't see something in the job description and then go and give the employer something else in the name of making your resume, stand out. If it's not in line with what you're looking for, then there's no way they're going to pick you. So I've said most of these things already, and we are running out of time. So I would definitely want to hear your questions at this point in time. So if you have any questions, you could just, put them in the chat box, and I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, now thank you very much. So guys, if you have any questions, you can put it on the chat. You are going to read it to her for her to answer. And then those of us who are watching from Facebook, you can also put your questions. We are monitoring it, and we are going to read it out on the Zoom platform for her to answer. So if you have any questions, just use the chat and then type. We are going to read it out. So now the first question that we have here is, what is a transferable skills? Or what
Okay.
are transferable skills?
Yes, so basically transferable skills are like skills that you can have across certain jobs. So let me give an example. Someone who has very great communication skills. That is a skill that you can, have across different jobs. So whether you are a marketer, whether you are an administrator, you'd want to have some skills and transferable skills that are the ones that you feel like, oh, even if I'm not, exactly in this field, I can still use them in a different field. So they are just, skills that you can have across board. So they are different from technical skills. For instance, let me give you an example of a technical skill so that you know the difference I'm talking about. So an example of a technical skill would
So I'm going to read out the series of questions that we have. So the next question that we have here is, where do you put your email address in the cover letter? So when you're writing a cover letter, where are you going to place your email address? Hello, Na. Okay, Na is gone. Okay, Na is here. Hello, Na. Can you hear us? Hello. Hello, Na. Can you hear me?
yes, I
Okay.
can.
Okay, let me read out the next question. Now, we want to find out where you are going to place your email address when you are writing a cover letter.
Okay, so with a cover letter, typically I would say that you have the same header that you have for your resume as the cover letter. So usually I have a matching resume that goes with the cover letter. So up there, where your name is boldly written, you have under your name, your address, your email address, your phone number, and all that. So that's going to be pretty much the same thing for the cover letter. So up there, you'd have your name boldly written on the cover letter, and then under your name, you'd have your, your address, your email address, your phone number, if possible, your LinkedIn URL. Then the employer's address comes down, then the cover letter follows. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm going to read from Facebook. Now, the next question here is, so please, with all these details, how can I know the number of accurate pages that a resume should contain as a master and a classic resume?
So typically, I'd advise that your resume should be between 1 to 2 pages.
How can I know the number of accurate pages that a resume should
contain? 1 or 2 pages is fine, unless you've been working for a very long time, let's say 10 years, and then I think maybe 3 to 4 pages would be okay, but typically just 1 or 2 pages, because they're not going to look at all the things there. It's just a matter of, 30 seconds or 20 seconds. Yeah. I hope that answers the person's question. Okay, so I see another question that says, how do you arrange your certificates? Is it by the year you completed? Okay, so I would advise that you arrange them in the reverse chronological order. So the most recent one first, and yeah, in that order. is it advisable to have different colors for your resume? I would say use subtle colors. Don't go and be using yellow and, pink. I once saw a pink resume and I was really sad when I saw it. So yeah, use subtle colors. You can use blue, you can use gray, you can use green, deep green, something that is not all over the place should do.
Okay. Now from Facebook, someone wants to find out how would you know the particular formatting your employer is looking for?
Okay, so it depends on the employer. So when you look at, like I said, the job description, that gives you an idea. And I have already mentioned that there's no, perfect format for a resume. Okay, there's no perfect format for a resume, and that's why I would advise that you put the most important things that you want the employer to see first, so that once they see that, they feel like, okay, this person is the right person for the job. If you are applying for, let's say, a master's program, obviously you'd want to put your academic, qualifications first, because you want them to see that, okay, this is what I've done, in the past, and so I want to pursue this master's degree or this PhD. And so that's different from a job. So it depends on the reason for applying for whatever you're applying for. You just need to have that in mind and need to put yourself in that person's shoes. And that should make things easier for you.
Okay. Quickly from Kent, he wants to find out, can you give an example of how you can use action verb in a statement on your resume?
I think I gave an example of that, where we had to choose between one, statement and the other, and we chose the second one. So we said something about someone being able to, I don't know if anybody remembers that. Hello?
Hello now.
Yeah.
Okay,
Are
I
you
think
here with me?
so can we go on?
Okay.
Okay, now the next question is it relevant to have your picture on your CV?
Oh, no, it's not relevant unless you are going to apply for a modeling, role or something
Okay.
that actually requires your face to be shown. It's not necessary.
Okay, now when you don't have any working experience in the area you are applying for, now what should you do? So now you're applying for a role that you don't have any
Okay.
experience.
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you do not have any experience at all, that's why I mentioned something about unpaid experience, whether it's an internship, whether it's a volunteering, experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be you formally working somewhere, but once you have some experience, you should be able to put that there. So I would encourage that person to look for an opportunity to volunteer somewhere, just so that they can have something to add on to their resume.
Okay, great. Okay. Now the next question is what does a professional email address looks like?
Okay, so a professional email address should have your name in it. If your name is taken, so for instance, if you have an email address that has your nickname in it, it's not the best. So you can just make sure that your email address has your name in it. If your name is okay, so in my case, my name is Nalamle Lamte, and my email address is nalamle6@gmail.com.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, now from Facebook, it says when a company asks an applicant to send their CV for a job application, would it be advisable to send your resume, having known the difference between a CV and then a resume now?
Oh yes, I mean it's something that is used interchangeably, So yeah, they may call it a CV, but once you know the purpose, you could just send a resume.
Okay, great. Now the next question here is, do all employers take the class of your graduation into consideration?
No, not all employers. I mean, some people are interested in that, and so you'd have to state that. But if they are not interested and you feel like you graduated with a class that isn't really the best, you can just be silent on that. But if it's, let's say you are a valedictorian or a first class student, definitely you might want to put that there, whether they've asked you for it or not. But if they've not said anything about it and you feel like it's not something that is exactly very impressive, there's no need to put it there. You can be silent on it.
Okay. Now, someone want to find out why should we not include our personal information on a resume?
Okay, that's a really good question. So there are so many reasons. Let me just say two of them. Now, the first one is it puts you, should I say, at some form of disadvantage depending on who is looking at it. So you want the person to see you from a professional point of view and nothing else. And so if you put it there that, let's say, I am 31 years old, immediately the person begins to think, okay, so maybe you're married. Maybe it means you'd have kids. Maybe you have responsibilities. Okay, then it means that you are probably going to be asking me all the time that you want to, take the day off because either you are sick or your husband or wife is sick or your kids are sick, and they are human beings. They are, they can think a lot of things just by some information that you give them. And so you don't put yourself at risk by doing that. Another thing too is it can also cause you to be rejected because they probably have certain or they have a criteria in mind that they may have been silent on in the, let's say, in the document, the job description. So once they see that and they feel like, okay, this is not exactly what we are looking for, they just go ahead and,
Okay.
let go of you.
Okay. So what I'm going to add here is that people have their own personal biases. So when you include those personal information, you might giving yourself up to certain assumptions, which might
Exactly.
help you in the application. And one thing is that the CV is something that cannot contain everything about you. So you make sure that whatever that you're putting out there is something that is going to sell you, but it's not something that is going to give you up. So you always have to think about what you are going to include. So when you put in everything, then you have to ask yourself, what is this thing going to say about me? Is it something that is going to sell me positively, or is something that is going to affect me in any way. So don't give room for those personal judgments and personal biases. Okay,
Yeah.
now from
Thanks.
John, he says, so having learned all these things, that your resume should not be more than 1 page, how can we summarize everything into a single page of sheet?
Yeah, but I didn't say it shouldn't be more than 1 page.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be between 1 to 2 pages ish. Yeah, but then, like I said, as much as possible, you want to give what is relevant. And so once you're giving only what is relevant, it will fit into the 1 or 2 pages.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the next question is already answered. Can we please show us a sample of a well-structured resume?
Well, am I allowed to do that? Because I don't think well, I don't have a sample that is not confidential.
Okay.
Yeah, because
Okay.
the ones I have are mainly for clients and they have their names on them. So
Okay. Okay, that's cool. Maybe you can
yeah,
search for some and then we can send it to them subsequently after the section if you get
that's
one.
fine.
Okay. Now, someone wants to find out what's the difference between the accomplishment you have mentioned in the professional summary and the one you are going to have at your experience.
Okay, so for the accomplishments in the what's it called, the professional summary, that's where you can put some awards there. So let's say you were awarded best national service personnel at where you worked, you'd state that day. But then in your experiences where you worked as a national service personnel, that's where you give details on some of the things that you did that caused you to be that outstanding person. I hope that makes sense.
Okay. Let's read the next one. Is it good to put your full name as the main header in your resume?
Of course, yes. Yes, it's actually important to have your full name as the main header up there.
Okay. I think the rest of the questions, okay, learn put into. Okay, so someone said that she has learned that putting 2 or more contacts on your CV sends a wrong signal to your employer or the employees. How true is that?
2 or more contacts. I'm
Yes,
not
for
sure I
example,
understand what that means.
I have MTN, I have Vodafone, I have maybe different networks. So I put all the 3 contacts on my CV.
Okay, first of all, I don't think that is necessary. Like, you don't have to put all those numbers there. Just put the most active number there. The one that you are very sure that when they call you, they can reach you. Sometimes I see 2 numbers, I don't have a problem with that. But when I see 3 numbers, then I'm wondering.
Yeah, because some people where they are staying, you see, the network is not stable. So at some point, some of the networks will be working, others will not be working. So the person doesn't want to miss any opportunity. So he wants to
Of
include everything.
course.
Okay. So someone is asking, what is a LinkedIn URL or LinkedIn link? What is that?
Okay, so I'm just going to be like very basic about this. But your LinkedIn URL is just like a link that will lead us straight to your LinkedIn profile. So when you check out your personal profile on LinkedIn, the link that you have up there is your LinkedIn URL. So some people, well, I would advise that once your LinkedIn is looking great, you can add that to your resume so that it's easy for employers to just click on that. So that's if they are looking at your resume on, a computer or something,
Okay.
click on that and then it takes them straight to your LinkedIn profile. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So I personally I like using the LinkedIn link because the CV is a bit limited. You can't put everything on your CV. So when you
Yeah.
have your link there, at least if you have a good profile, it gives the employers another room to also check you up on some of the things that you'll be doing. So only if you have a good profile, you can have it there so that it gives them another way to also assess you. Someone wants to say, someone is saying, he had a conversation about this interest and hobbies. Now he wants to find out. He has learned that when you include those things on your resume, it gives the interviewer a feel of you, that you are not a robot or a boring person. So it gives them something else to talk about at the interview. What's your take on that?
Honestly, I don't think it's necessary. Yeah, it's not necessary to, put your, so how do you know? Okay, so you put football day or you put swimming day, how do you know that particular um that particular employer cares about football? And it could also make the employer be like, okay, you like football. So that means that during working hours, once there's a football match, you are going to
Yep.
ditch working hours and then go and watch football. So for that, it can be a bit dicey. So generally, I don't advise that.
Okay, that's cool. Someone wants to ask, can we use your national service as a means of experience if you are a fresh graduate?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, sure, because I also have that in my experiences. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you recommend ongoing education as first before the completed ones? So
I'm not sure
maybe,
I got the question.
okay, so you want to find out if you have ongoing education, but you have already
Yeah.
completed some education, is it advisable to place that one first before the
Oh
completed
yeah.
ones?
So that's why I said I'd advise we do it in reverse chronological order. So the most recent one, then like that.
Okay. Now, here the person wants to find out, after listing your leadership experience, do you include bullet points under each of them?
I'm not sure I understand that.
So maybe your leadership experiences, for example, you were the president of UCAPS. Do you have to
Mm-hmm.
put some bullet points, maybe highlight some of the things that you did or some of your responsibilities or something that maybe adds up to that leadership experience?
Oh, of course. Once, like I said, it really depends on you. So once you feel like, okay, this is going to be relevant to this role I'm applying for, of course, go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's why, as much as possible, before you apply for any job, you need to research. Even after you've read the job description, go and research. You can even check on LinkedIn, find out if anybody works there, if anybody has ever been in that role. Try to get some more information about that role, about the company, so that you know exactly how to put your documents together and you know exactly how or what to put in your resume, in your cover letter, and all of that, so that you would have an advantage. But if you leave everything to assumptions, you may not exactly, be able to make impact when you apply. But once you have some extra information and you have a better understanding of what they are looking for in a candidate, you know exactly what to put in your resume and you know exactly what to highlight.
Okay.
Yeah. do
Someone,
we do we have more questions?
yeah, we have like
Because I
two.
have to hop on another call, but
Okay.
I just don't know if
So we have like two more questions, so you can take it
okay.
and wrap up. So
All right, that's
someone
fine.
someone wants to find out, is it advisable to include your Facebook link on your resume?
No, it's not necessary.
Okay. Someone, I'm sure this relates to an interview. If you are asked the amount you would want to pay, what do you do?
So once again, I would say research on the company, find out, okay, so typically how much do they pay for, or do they pay any candidates for this particular role? Find out, get an idea, and then don't go and say anything that you would give me. That, never say that, but you can give a range. You can give them a range, and then you take it from there.
Okay, that's great. So that's where we are going to end the whole section. It seems you have exhausted all the questions. Someone is asking, is it advisable to put the certificate you are still pursuing?
Oh yeah, you can, feel free. But
Okay.
you have to make it known that you're still pursuing it. I mean, if you have any more questions, you could contact me on Instagram. Is at Elevate with NLL. So it's
Can you
together.
share that in the chat so they can quickly get it on
Yes.
the
So if you have any questions at all, feel free, can follow me. I share tips on that. So I'm sharing that in the chat box, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. If you want me to review your resume, I have a free service for that as well. So you can just check that out on my page and email your resume to. So I'm giving you the email for that as well. It's info@elevatewithnll.com. So you can send in your resume for, my opinion on the resume, and then you take it from there.
That's
I hope
great.
everyone is fine.
Yeah, we are all fine. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
So guys,
All right.
this is where we are going to wrap up. So we appreciate your time, and we have had a great time having you guys around. Okay. And now we also appreciate the time and then the experience that we have shared with us. So now we are going to work on our CVs and make sure we come up with a CV that will be able to sell our skills. So guys, this is where we are going to wrap up.
Awesome.
We also have other sections coming up on how you can build a personal brand on LinkedIn. So we are going to take you through how you'll be able to put your LinkedIn profile together, because these are some of the things employers also look out for. You can also use the platform to also network with other people as well. So we are going to also have another section on that. So since we have your emails, we are going to update you on any upcoming sections. So we want to thank you guys for having you here. And now we appreciate your time and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much for your time as well. And all the best. I hope to hear from you guys.
So,
God bless you all.
God bless you.
so we are going to
Thank you.
send it to you guys. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.